My name is Danish Patti. I'm a movement disorders neurologist, associate professor at University of Nebraska Medical Center, and I am currently the chair of APPNA Merit for this year. Welcome to APPNA Merit Healthcare Research and Innovation Landscape in Pakistan webinar series, which is a joint effort of APPNA Merit Central Committee and the APPNA Merit Research Subcommittee. It's been a wonderful a few months here doing these sessions, and what we wanted to do with this webinar series was to highlight the landscape of healthcare research and healthcare innovation in Pakistan, so that people are more aware of all the work that is being done in silos, connect with everyone. We initially wanted to do this ourselves as the Merit Central Committee. In January or February of this year, we decided we're going to do that. But then I proposed that why not open this process and experience for everyone, so that the information that we will be learning and we getting access as the Merit Central Committee will also be open to anyone who wants to come in and join. And this will become a platform for other people to see what wonderful work is being done in Pakistan. So we started by inviting people, inviting key players, key leaders that we can think of. And as we heard from other people doing excellent work, and we learned a lot. We have been thoroughly enjoying these series and really educating ourselves on all the wonderful work being done in Pakistan. But one thing I wanted to do was to create a platform where people can present their research and their work, their research interest and enthusiasm. We want to support and promote the culture of research in Pakistan. So for that reason, we proposed this special research webinar today, which is being called Merit Research Podium Presentation, where we announced an open call for anyone who is in Pakistan and doing research to submit their work and interest and apply to be selected for a podium presentation. The Merit Research Committee reviewed all the submissions and picked 4 people to present their work in today's session, in this special webinar session for today. And the idea is for us to encourage people who are doing research or wants to do research, promote the appreciation and culture of research in Pakistan, and give idea and a platform for people to be able to share the excellent work that they're doing. So let me do some house rules before I start with the presentation. These healthcare research innovation landscape webinars are CME webinars. They're approved for ACCME Category 1 CME that is being offered by APPNA in partnership with their vendor AMEDCO. These CME webinars are very kindly supported by the APPNA RISA Committee on Research, Education, and Scientific Affairs. And I'm thankful to them for bearing the cost of these CMEs, so we can offer the CME for free for these webinars with the AMA Category 1 CME. The CMEs are issued after every 12 webinars. We're working on the second batch of CME right now, doing some paperwork behind the scene to get the approval from APPNA, all the requirements that we have to fulfill, and then those will be issued based on your attendance. And then the third quarter has started, and the third round of CME will be issued after the next 12 webinars. The proposed program or plan for today is to give 10 minutes to each presenter. So I will invite a presenter one by one. And I will have them present their work in less than 10 minutes. At this 10 minutes is a hard stop. We will give them a 1-minute warning. So Walid, if you can keep track of that, and give a 1-minute warning to the presenter. And then at 10 minutes, the microphone will be muted. And then we'll have 2 to 3 minutes for some discussions or question and answers in between that the panelists may have, that the audience may have. So you can put your questions in Q&A or in the chat box for any of the presenter, and we'll try to address those questions to the presenter. And then we'll go on to the next presenter after that. And hopefully we can wrap this all up in next 55 minutes to close on time. So with that, let me start with our first presenter for the day. It is my pleasure to invite Dr. Samia Taslim. Dr. Samia has PhD in microbiology and is a postdoc researcher at University of Karachi and FUUAST Karachi. She is the CEO, founder of Pakistan Education, Health and Technology Innovation Consultant Group, and CEO, founder of Pakistan Technology Innovation Group. Her talk title is Honey is the Best Medicine in Ancient and Modern Era for Treatment of Chronic Wounds, with that, let me invite Dr. Tasleem to go ahead with her presentation, and she can share her screen if she would like.
Hello.
Ji, please go ahead, Dr. Tasleem. We can hear you.
Hello. Assalamu alaikum.
Ji, walaikum salam. Please go ahead.
Today my topic of presentation is honey is the best medicine in Asian and modern era for the treatment of chronic wound. I am very thankful to APPNA give me opportunity to share my research. This is my brief introduction. This executive summary is the chronic wound to characterize to the different problems. It is also include to diabetic foot and bed sores and different type of unhealed infections. All are the considered as a chronic and untreated wound. The keyword of my presentation, honey ointment and wound infections. The outline of my presentation, introduction, medical use of honey and methodology of this research, results and conclusion. The introduction and backgrounds, the antibiotic resistance is the big global threat. It is alarming to the WHO. Next era is have the major phase for the antibiotic resistance. 2015 deaths attribute to antimicrobial resistance every year. The Asian population is a major threat. Antibiotic discovery and resistance timeline is much greater to the 2010 and 2020. How antibiotic resistance spread due to the misuse of antibiotic in food materials and lot of misuse antibiotic therapy, the antibiotic resistance and emerge day by day. 2050, one person die every 3 seconds. This picture shows the certain ancient pictures shows that we use the different products and honey for the treatment of as a first line treatment for the control and therapy for the unhealed skin problems. What is the mechanism? The honey environment problem, lot of ROS due to the medication, smoking, air pollution, inflammatory process, UV radiation, ionization radiation. Lipid membrane and nucleic acid and protein are denatured, the cause the cancer, cardiovascular, cataract, aging, and neurological problems. The honey contain many medical therapeutic effects like anti-inflammatory, anti-browning, immunomodulation, disinfection, vasodilative, antioxidant, anti-ulcer, anti-tumor, and antibacterial, antiviral activity. The honey contains lot of chemical constituent to solve the therapeutic problems. We concerned the antimicrobial and antifungal therapies, inflammatory and immunomodulation, antioxidant, natural immune booster, remedy of diarrhea, cure the gastric and gastric ulcer, cure the dermatitis, and diabetic, anti-cancer, anti-tumor, and wound healing. So what is the mechanism apply to the honey and wound healing mechanism? The wound healing mechanism have the treatment of different phase, inflammatory phase, proliferating phase, and remodulation phase. Honey emphasize to the have cure in decrease the inflammation, and decrease the infection load and rapid the formulation of the skin rebonding. The what process it promote the epithelialization, promote granulation of tissue formation, increase the wound construction, develop new vessels, synthesize collagen and stimulated tissue growth. We also developed the honey hydrogels. It is our future plan. We are working on this. The stages of my research is selection of honey, formulation of honey ointment, stabilization of ointment, standardization of ointment, and making dressing sterilized, the product and human observation. The methodology is the experimental non-comparative study the outdoor patient of dermatology Fauci Foundation Hospital in Rawalpindi, November 2011 to May 2019. The scheme of study, selection of honey, antimicrobial activity, formulation, formulation of topical product from ointment, making dressing and clinical observation. This is our product we developed. We also developed the dressings. Recently, we developed the wound care kit for patient friendly and user friendly. It is a patent in Pakistan. We published 4 international books. It is available for Amazon. We treat the diabetic wound, accidental wound, burn wounds, and different type of burn wounds like hot water wound, oil wound, pressure ulcer, and pressure cooker burn wound, and hot water wound. So we treat the different age group distribution, the 1 year to the different age and brackets group. We treated the 400 patient. The lesion of we treat the skin wound infection, diabetic foot ulcer, common bacterial infection, eczema, dermatitis, and burns. The healing, mean healing time, we calculate the maximum wound are treated 40 to 60 days. This is the case studies. We treat different type of wounds. It is a first picture. A shows the before treatment and B shows the after treatment. This is the diabetic wound. We also treat the diabetic ulcers rapid than the other treatment. It's burn wound cases. It's also burn wound cases. It's eczema cases. It's skin infection cases. These patients, this is the case history for the spinal mycobacterium tuberculosis patient. Is the bedridden patient for the many years. He has developed the many pressure wounds and bed sores. So we treat these chronic wounds and fullish to the bed to the walk the normal daily routine. This the pictures shows 2 different bed sores. We treated
1 minute left, Dr. Tasleem. 1 minute warning.
We also treat the pressure sores ulcers. We treated the 1 and 2 cases for the major surgical infections treatment. In 2019, these display in DICE forum. We are talking in continue for the modern for the collaboration for the commercialization, and future aim to be develop the wound care centers and wound care team. We also work in hydrogel formation for the honey based product, and these my supervisor Abakashon Naqvi is the belong for the pharmaceutical microbiology department, University of Karachi. Dr. Abid is food science, Dr. Saadat is medical side, and Mohammad Ijad, Mohammad Muinuddin, and technical staff, IT staff, and other friends and family members. Thank you for
Dr. Tasleem.
listening. my
Thank you.
presentation.
Thank you for a kind presentation. That was a very nice broad overview of all your work. Sounds like the work is very extensive and you have done thousands of patients, so many case reports, and even have your own books on this idea. So it was really summarizing everything in 10 minutes. It's a big project. So that leaves us a little thirsty for some of the details. Details like sterilization, mixing, percentages, how do you protect those anti-inflammatory lipids during the processing, and then the control that you use for trials. Are these randomized controlled trials or non-randomized? Are these just observations? So there's a ton of detail that becomes a challenge, but let me see if any of our panelists have any questions before I see if audience has any question. Dr. Siddiqui, Mustafa Siddiqui is the chair of our research committee. Let me start with you.
Assalamu alaikum. Excellent presentation. I'm going to be quick in my questions. First, has your research been published in a peer-reviewed journal? Because the second question is, have you had control in your trials? That means comparing two treatments so that in a randomized way to show the effectiveness of this. And the third question was, it is often said that the best honey is your local honey, which your local, so it's good to buy honey from your local sources. Do you have any insight on that? Thank you.
I give you answer the first question. We used our product development is local sources honey. In Pakistan, one honey research institute working for the increase the production of different floral type of honey. We use these local sources honey. We standardize these local honey according to the USP formulation, and also develop the formulation according to the USP to give the patient friendly. And secondly, we published 2 papers in Ayub Medical Journal. It is a peer-reviewed and PubMed Index journal. And we published 4 international books by the German publisher Lambert, and also planning to write different papers. Recently, we submit in the international journals, because the lack of funding in Pakistan, all process is very slow. And we also plan out to it is not a control trial. This is the observation check to our formulation have actively load to the treatment of different type of wound. In future study, we plan to the control randomized study to check the other treatment time of duration, cost is very matter in Pakistani local treatment. So it is the cheapest treatment. We treat 2,000 rupees in Pakistani in the chronic treatment for the patient.
Thank you. Dr. Frasis Zaman, do you have any question or comment?
Thank you, Dr. Danish. It's a very, very wonderful work, I think, and I know there are many products, actually, even in Sweden here, which are honey-based ointments and sold for the wound healing. I would like to ask have you checked any allergic reactions to those people who are allergic to the bees in this kind of studies? Because we know that some people are allergic to bees as well. And have you looked at your products?
In according to our observation, we treat more than 10,000 patients. No patient shows any adverse effect. The other treatment shows some allergic reaction and some inflammation, some allergies and some rashes. But our medicine shows not any adverse effect. We noted.
Thank you. Dr. Babarao, please go ahead.
Yeah, I think I have talked to Samia also independent of this presentation in past week or so. I think the real work will be to do a randomized controlled trial somewhere outside of her own institute where she is, and then we would really find out the truth for international publications, etc. So after this conversation, I think we'll continue conversation with Samia to see how can we guide her or help her.
Wonderful. And one last question before we move on. I see Dr. Ruknuddin have raised your hand. Dr. Ruknuddin, please unmute yourself, introduce yourself, and ask your question or make your comment. Dr. Ruknuddin, I think you're unmuted, but we're not able to hear you. Can you try unmuting again? Yeah. Yeah, so I think unfortunately we're not able to hear you right now, so we'll circle back to you later on. So let me go ahead with the next presentation. I will next invite Manam Farooq. Manam Farooq is a fourth year MBBS student in King Edward Medical University, class of 2022. It's a great pleasure to see two students presenting today, taking this opportunity. We will be issuing a certificate of podium presentation to our presenters. So Manam, this will be a good addition to your resume. Thank you for your interest in research and for submission for presenting at our forum. Please go ahead. You have
Thank you,
10 minutes
sir.
to present and you'll get 1 minute warning.
Yes, sir. Am I audible?
Yes, you are. Go ahead.
Okay. So thank you, sir. And okay, a bit about my outline of the presentation today. So it was an open content that that was proposed in the instruction. So I actually will be telling you a little about myself and the current research projects that I'm doing. And then I'll be coming on towards an in-depth discussion into one of my research projects, that is nomophobia, and all the details of it. So I'm Minam Farooq. I'm from King Edward Medical University, a fourth year MBBS undergraduate student. And basically my research journey started last year during the COVID pandemic, because obviously there was so much time and I could have some time, like I could spare some time from studies to research too. So that is when I really started looking into research. So by now, some of my published work is in the university journals, and a few of them are in the PubMed index too. And these basically include the some of the projects that were regarding the gynae and the OBGYN, because my mother is also a professor of gynae and OBGYN. So actually I assisted her in a few of her projects. And then one of my studies is about the emerging prophylactic strategies of COVID-19 that I started in the last year. And then there was also a study there in which I volunteered that was about the randomized control trials comparing the renal sympathetic denervation in the resistant hypertension patients. And I actually volunteered in a in a study that was conducted in Einstein Health Philadelphia, and I actually shadowed one of my seniors there. So abhi jo current research projects and that include the one that is being supervised by our community medicine department, that is regarding the maternal health care access institute that I'm volunteering, that is being supervised by a supervisor in University of Glasgow, UK. That is a cross-cultural study जो कि career preferences से related है among the medical students in Pakistan, in the UK and Saudi Arabia. So basically we are covering 3 demographics here. And then there is this one systematic review that I'm doing in the cardiology and nephrology departments. I'm again volunteering in one of their projects that's being conducted at Einstein Health Philadelphia. And then my today's project that I'll be going to talk about is about the prevalence of nomophobia in the undergraduate students of Pakistan. Regarding that, first of all, I have to tell you what nomophobia is. Then I'll be telling you that how I came up with the idea, and then I'll be telling you a little about how I conducted this research. So nomophobia actually is a compound word. It is a word that is combined by 3 separate words, that is no, NO from no, and then mobile phone. We took not we actually there was this UK organization that took MO from the mobile phone, and then the phobia, the word phobia, which actually means fear and anxiety. So it made a word called nomophobia that was proposed in 2008 in the UK. And it is a relatively new term that actually means the growing anxiety and fear of among the people that comes without having a mobile phone. And this was something very interesting. And now I'll tell you how I got to the idea. So it was very spontaneous and it was very random. Actually, me and 2 of my friends, we just hung out for for a refreshment. And then one of my friends is a freelancer. So actually he told me that he got a project, like a newspaper article, to write on a topic or a word he used, that was nomophobia. So it was very new for all of us. So it got hit me and my other friend too, that, okay, what is that? So he told me that nomophobia actually means that not being, having all the fear and anxiety and frustration if you don't have the mobile phone. So I said, okay, that is something interesting. So I already had done a few research projects. By that, I was looking for new projects and new ideas to, really enhance my experience 2 days. And then I reached out to them again, my friends, and said that, okay, we need to do some literature search on the topic nomophobia, and see what is the potential of research in Pakistan on this particular topic. So when we did all the research and or the literature search, then we came up with the decision that, okay, we are going to do it. Because actually the rationale behind doing it is that the study regarding nomophobia has not been done by now in the Pakistani demographic by anyone. And secondly is that it has also not been added in the DSM, that is a Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, all the mental disorders that have been listed in the in the manual, and it is followed universally. So it was not added in that too, not till the 5th edition. So we thought that, okay, we need to do more work on it so that there is more pool of knowledge in the field, in the domain of nomophobia. So maybe they could consider it adding to the DSM. So this was the rationale behind. So what was the aims and the objectives? The objectives were basically that we need to study the nomophobia's prevalence in the undergraduate students of Pakistan, and then also to study the contributory factors. The main questionnaire that we used was proposed by Yildirim and Correa, and their study is a groundbreaking study in the nomophobia chapter of cyber psychology, because they were the ones who actually issued their first standard questionnaire that is being now followed internationally. And the factors that we studied were four. Actually, this is a 20-item questionnaire, so it was divided into 4 factors by Yildirim and Correa themselves, that were not being able to communicate, losing connectedness, not being able to access information, and then giving up convenience. I'll be touching a little bit in detail when I come to the data analysis part of my study. And then comes the materials and methods. I'll just summarize it, that it is a very simple cross-sectional based study, observational study, in which we actually made an online form, and then we snowballed that form, that Google form, among our peers and among the undergraduate students. Our basically the target population of our study is an undergraduate student from 15 to 25 years old. It covers the intermediate students, the FSC students too, as well as going up to the final years of the university student. And it was conducted from, our data collection was conducted from 5th April to 19th April. So it was about 2-week data collection that we did. And we used a few softwares for our data analysis too. So coming on towards the results, we got about 455 valid respondents. So we actually had calculated our sample size too. So it was about 384. So we got 455. So that was actually good, to add to the significance of the study too. And then I'll just cover the results very quickly. So we had 3 categories of nomophobia. Nomophobia had 20 questions, the questionnaire, and each question had a maximum score of 7 and a minimum score of 1, which means that after filling the total questionnaire, you might get a maximum score of 140, or you might get a minimum score of 20. So according to our results, about most of them lied in the moderate category of nomophobia, which had a score of about 60 to 100. And so this is the frequency distribution graph being showed, the bar chart actually. So the major portion is being in the moderate and the severe category. Then comes the gender distribution. The gender distribution was actually a 60-40 ratio. We had 60% female respondents and 40% male respondents. The best and the most important finding that we could get was that nomophobia had a higher score in females. It means that panic and anxiety when mobile phone is not near females is more as compared to that in males. Why was that? So when it was all disintegrated, that what is the main reason of that females have a more potency and vulnerability of being nomophobic, we found out that female labor force a percentage in Pakistan is actually 22%. So it means that only 22% of the females are in the working force. All of the others are at homes. So when they are at home, so they obviously have to tackle their loneliness too and their free time too. So they do it by using mobile phones. So actually this finding is something that was very strengthening and corroborative of other findings too that were conducted in other researches, and everybody found in even other studies that happened in other parts of the world that female are potentially more nomophobic as compared to males. Okay, and then coming on towards the factors. So so there are 4 factors. So, and the maximum average score was 4.97 that came of factor being not being able to access information. It means that people were more nomophobic.
1
People had
minute left,
higher,
Manam. This is 1 minute
people were
warning.
more nomophobic because of having no access to information. And then comes the limitations of my study. The limitations of my study are very straightforward. The first limitation is a geographical one, because obviously it is being conducted in Pakistan, so we can just talk about Pakistan, we cannot take it universally. And then demographic study that we just covered the undergraduate students, so it was a limitation too. And then the biggest limitation was our COVID-19, because in COVID-19 obviously we were at homes too, we were in the lockdown too, so we were using mobile excessively than our usual routines too. So it could be a potential limitation of, having higher scores of nomophobia too. So that is all from my side. And if there are any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Thank you, Manam. This is wonderful work. Thanks for summarizing all your work. That's good to see all that you're doing. Relevant to this particular presentation, let me start by pointing out or asking your comments on 2 things. One, it seems like 90%, nearly 90% of your respondents had moderate to severe nomophobia. Only 10% was mild. So that's very interesting. But it raises a question in my mind: is that questionnaire even applicable to our community? And is that questionnaire basically studying something else underlying? You mentioned loneliness as one, and doing it in a COVID setting where everybody's just homebound. And are we really picking up a 90% depression in our community rather than a true nomophobia through that? And then one last question from you will be, you want to highlight a little bit on this snowballing technique? I think social media is highly underutilized in healthcare research. We actually did a research on runners' dystonia. So dystonia that happens in the leg on female runners, but we could not recruit anyone. We recruited one in 9 months. And then we did Facebook ad, and in 2 weeks, we had like 50 or 60 recruited for the runners' dystonia. So I think you underutilize for recruitment. So maybe tell us a little bit about snowballing, please.
Okay, sir, sure. So there are a lot of questions, so I don't actually remember all of them, but I'll try to answer them what I can remember. Your first question, I don't know if it was the first one or the second one, but it was that if nomophobia, the questionnaire you were talking about, is it applicable to the population of Pakistan? So the first thing is that this nomophobic phobia questionnaire is something universal, is something standard. Every study that we do, every quantitative study that we do, there are different questionnaires that have been proposed, and most of them are being proposed obviously by the US and the UK researchers. For example, we have a HAD scale of depression and anxiety too. So it was proposed by the developers in US and the UK, but we are applying it here. So the thing is that whenever a case happens where we use a questionnaire that is being developed by somebody else, and we are using it in another population, we always quote the limitation of being, the geographical and the demographic limitation alongside it. But it doesn't mean that the questionnaire itself can not be applicable because of just being proposed by another, the whole other developed world. So this was the answer to your first question. And second question was about actually that was the last one, about snowballing. So I'll cover that, and then you can ask those ones I forgot. I'm sorry. The snowballing technique is actually, there are a lot of sampling techniques. There are different types of researches. There are probability samplings and non-probability samplings. So snowballing technique is actually one of the techniques of sampling that is used in the non-probability type. What happens is that we spread a questionnaire to one person, and then he spreads it forward to a few others, and then this is how it grows exponentially. So this is called a snowballing technique. And definitely nowadays, when most of the people are here in the lockdown, and everything. This is a very convenient way of, conducting researches. Obviously, we cannot do clinical researches and on-field researches through online performance, but there are many, researches that can be done. For example, if we want to study about IBS or anything, if we want to study about migraine, I also did a study on the contributing factors of migraine in the population of Pakistan. So we again use this same technique that is very convenient, that we can just, use a Google form to make a questionnaire and then spread it. So
thank you,
I
Manam.
think
Sorry, we're running out of time, so I need to push people forward. Let me take a couple of comments. I don't think we'll have time for you to respond to any more questions or comment. But Dr. Siddiqui, any comments from your side?
Congratulations for a very nice research, and you use validated instrument. That's very important for any research, and you are a good power. So congratulations for that. My only thing was about the semantics of nomophobia. To my mind, phobia is irrational fear. And here, to me, if your mobile phone is taken away, it's more anxiety. And if you have time for comment, then I would be.
I don't think we have time because we have 2 more presentations. Sorry, Manam, we'll do these questions later on, but let me invite others for comment. Dr. Frost Zaman, any comments from you? Okay, Dr. Baba Rao, any comments from you? All right, so Manam will connect with you later on and continue further discussions, but let me move on to our next presenter. So Waleed, if you want to share the video, my next presenter is Dr. Muhammad Adil Kamar, who's a 3rd-year medical student in Ziauddin University, Karachi, Pakistan. And again, wonderful to see another student presenting. The talk title is The Mystery of COVID-19 Reinfections, Systematic Review and Meta-Analysis of 577 Cases. A wonderful topic. Waleed, please go ahead and play the presentation.
Assalamualaikum, I'm Muhammad Adil Kamar, and I'll be presenting the study titled The Mystery of COVID-19 Reinfections, a Global Systematic Review and Meta-Analysis of 577 Cases. So, the current situation of COVID-19 as of now is that there are 221 million cases with 4 million deaths worldwide. Coming to the statistics regarding the reinfection of COVID-19, the incident rate stands as 1 per 100,000 person days. Also, the reinfection rate as reported in 2 studies stands as 0.31 and 0.7% respectively. Now coming to the objectives of our study. So the objectives were quite simple, that we did this study in order to assess the demographic and epidemiological spread of the reinfection cases worldwide. Also, we did a comparison between the first infection and reinfection features such as disease spectrum, clinical management and outcome. And separately, we did an analysis on the pediatric population for the same outcomes, and the pediatric population was defined as person aged from 0 to 18 years old. Coming to the materials and methods, so a comprehensive search strategy was created, and then we did a literature review on 5 databases covering the following timeline. The exclusion criteria was quite simple, that any study wasn't presenting with original data was excluded. The following data items were extracted. As for the statistical analysis regarding our study, we did a basic descriptive analysis, which was supplemented by odds ratio, which featured the first and reinfection features. Now, this is the Prisma flow diagram for our study. It shows that after the initial searches and title and abstract screening plus the full text eligibility screening, a total of 81 studies were included in our study. Now in this slide we can see the global distribution of the included studies, which were 81 in total. China accounted for the most reported studies, which accounted as 34.6% of total studies. 1/6 of our studies came from the USA, which were 11 out of 81 studies. To the left we can see a world map showing the visual representation of the spread of the number of studies in this map, which obviously shows that China contributed to the most number of studies. Coming to the demographic and epidemiology of study population, in our study population, the mean age stood at 46.2 plus minus 18.9 years old. The most commonly reported comorbidity in our study was hypertension. Coming to the average time duration between first and reinfection, our study reported it as 63.6 plus minus 48.9 days. Now, the other studies on the same topic reported this time duration as 76 days, a median of 113.5 days. A study by Czech Republic reported a median of 201.5 days, and a study in JAMA reported the duration as 230 days. Now, it is to be noted that the IgM antibody peaks at 7 days and declines after 27 days, and IgG antibodies peaks at 12 days and declines after 60 days. So the declining after 60 days is supportive of the average time duration reported in our study of 63.6 days, and also supportive of the other time durations presented in other studies. So coming to the clinical features, fever was reported as the most common symptom in both first infection and reinfection, with an odds ratio of 1.24 times greater presenting in the first infection compared to reinfection. Overall, the incidence of symptoms was higher in reinfection, and the odds of having a symptom was 0.93 times that of reinfection for the first infection. As for the positivity for antibodies, it stood at 56% and 63% in both the infections respectively, and the asymptomatic cases increased from 9.2% to 31.9% from first infection to reinfection. Coming to the radiological findings, so only 4.3% of the total study population reported that they had a normal finding, with over half of the population, of 51.1% to be exact, reported abnormalities in their radiological tests. Now, coming to the clinical management and outcomes, so antiviral therapy was reported as the most used therapy in both the infections. As we can see in the figure that the total events of management was higher in first infection compared to reinfection. This is a contradictory finding given that the symptomatic picture was greater in reinfection. Also, one more important finding in this is the fact that higher asymptomatic cases were reported in reinfection, 31.1%. That contradicts the increased ICU admission and mechanical ventilation as well as low flow oxygen rates, which increased drastically in reinfection compared to first infection. This point will be further discussed in the strengths and limitations of this study. Lastly, the reported deaths stood at 1.8%, with respiratory failure being the most common cause. A study conducted on the same topic showed a death rate of 3.2% in this study. Coming to the pediatric population, so a total of 24 participants were eligible to be part of this analysis. Analysis showed that the asymptomatic presentation predominated both first infection and reinfection. The radiological abnormalities stood at 37.5%, which was lower than the overall population, which stood at 51.1%, which is quite encouraging. As far as clinical management is concerned, antiviral therapy again stood as the most commonly used therapy in first infection, whereas traditional Chinese medicine took over in reinfection, which is different from the overall population. Lastly, the patients in the pediatric population fully recovered, while the overall population reported 10 deaths. Coming to the strengths and limitations of this study, the obvious strength is that this study is the largest known study on reinfection of COVID-19 covering 22 countries. The limitation, however, is the fact that this study has a relatively small sample size, and it is prone to risk of selection bias, given that most of our studies are case reports and case series. Also, the contradictory finding which was discussed in the clinical management and outcome slide, looking at that finding, the author suggests that an individual patient data analysis would be a better option for future studies and a larger sample size also, so that a conclusive and better reliable finding is agreed upon in the future studies. Lastly, concluding the study findings, that the study is suggestive of the fact that the public campaigns currently being run by government and private organizations should target groups at higher risk as identified in our studies, such as in gender, female were in more percentage compared to males. Also, vaccination acceptance and vaccination drives should be accelerated, since only vaccination and following SOPs, these two are the only options right now to prevent further infections and reinfection rates. Lastly, the study findings, such as the clinical features and the management, should be considered in future patient management so that better outcomes are produced. Thank you, that's all, and I'll be looking forward to the question answer session.
Wonderful, thank you. Very wonderful job, excellent presentation, a very properly and thoroughly done project. I think systematic analysis forms a backbone of future research. It guides what are the missing questions, what are the missing elements. And as you can see in this brief presentation, we already have an idea of a couple of things that are unclear and can be further studied in a prospectively designed study. I also like the idea that only the data from the studies which actually have published individual patient data was taken to avoid any confusion or misrepresentation. So Dr. Adil Kamar has done a wonderful job being a third-year medical student in working in this collaboration and presenting the data. So let me see, we don't have time for Q&A, but Adil, if you want to say anything, please go ahead and you can. Otherwise, I will invite comments from our panelists.
Danish, no
Yeah,
comment. It was an excellent study.
Ji, Dr. Siddiqui.
Excellent study, Adil. Have you been able to publish this in a journal?
so we have sent it to PLOS ONE and it's under peer review. So hopefully we'll be able to publish it soon.
So congratulations.
Yeah, PLOS ONE is pretty good journal. They just charge a lot of fees. Dr. Frasid Zaman, any question or comment?
Yeah, thank you, sir. Very, very nice study. Congratulations. And I think this is what we needed. Just I was wondering your comment on, we know that the prolonged air pollution exposure, that is also contributing to COVID infections, and it has severe symptoms, right? Do you think that, because you're covering 22 countries here in this study, do you think that the air pollution status can be fetched out somehow from those countries and include that one as well, and see is there any correlation with reinfections?
Yeah, so for the reinfection, the thing is that we have studies from HIC and LMIC, both. So the air pollution levels in both these categories might differ significantly. So like it's a great comment, and I'll say that research should be done on this particular topic as well, so that we can find out if there is a correlation between these two and reinfection cases.
Wonderful. So we're running short of time. Let me move on to our last speaker for the day. Our last speaker is Mr. Mohammad Bilal Afzal. Bilal is a medical imaging technologist at Nawaz Sharif Social Security Hospital, Lahore, and he'll be presenting on effectiveness of digital psychological interventions for mental health problems in low-income and middle-income countries, a systematic review and meta-analysis. Ji Bilal, please go ahead and with your
Very good
presentation.
evening. Very good evening to very gentlemen. It is an immense pleasure and honor for me to present my presentation in front of you people. I am Mohammad Bilal Afzal. Screen share नहीं हो रही. Host हमें enable कीजिएगा. Screen share नहीं हो रही. Share की नहीं हो रही.
जी अब ट्राई करें.
Yes. अब हो गई. Here it is. Effectiveness of my disclosure. I am from Department of Medical Imaging Sciences, University of Lahore. I am an FSc Pre-Medical from Government College University. I am an eminent radiography, BSc from Punjab University in 2014, and Bachelor's in Medical Imaging Sciences from University of Lahore. Effectiveness, the topic is effectiveness of digital and psychological interventions for mental health problems in low income and middle income countries, systemic review and meta-analysis. This evidence this rapid evidence review explores adolescents, girls and boys access to use of digital media, especially mobile phones and internet in low and middle income countries. It examines the associated digital skills, practices, and opportunity and risk, including forms safety, especially among 10 to 14 year old age group in boys and girls. The author seeks to address two main categories: what do scholars and practitioners do about young adolescents are using digital media? उनकी key challenges क्या है जो children और boys and girls face करते हैं जो school और colleges में. Evidence thereof national and international development programs, effect of use of digital media to target early adolescence age bracket of 15 plus years. इसकी बैकग्राउंड इसके मेथड्स पे हमने जो एक्सप्लोर किए थे सिस्टमिक रिव्यू मेटा पब्लिशिंग गवर्नमेंट साइकिंफो बेस and Cochrane database for article publishing in English from database inception from March 2000 March 9 2020 when randomized controlled trials trials investigating digital psychological intervention in individuals with mental health problems in low middle income countries. We extracted data on demographic inclusion, exclusion criteria, details of intervention, including of setting, digital delivery, control, condition, number of sessions, therapeutic orientation, for example, presence or absence of guidance. If a study reported insufficient data to calculate effective size, the corresponding author were contacted to provide data that could be aggregated. We did random effect meta-analysis and concluded standardized mean differences in scores of psychological intervention versus control conditions. Quality of evidence was assessed by use of rating recommendation assessment, development and evaluation program. The primary outcome was post-intervention mental health problem as measured by self-reporting, instruments and clinical interviews. Findings. We found 22 eligible studies that were included in meta-analysis. The included studies involved a total of 4104 participants. We mainly focused on young adults with depression or substance misuse. The result showed that there is digital psychological interventions are moderately effective when compared with control interventions. There was no evidence of publication bias and quality evidence according to grade criteria was generally high. इसकी इंटरप्रिटेशन में मैं कुछ आपको और बता चलूं. मैंने जो डाटा एनालिसिस यहाँ पे किया है ये एक डाटा एनालिसिस 5446 records were identified, 5441 identified by database research, 5 identified through other resources. तो ये हमने ये स्लाइड बहुत इम्पोर्टेंट सी है. 1887 duplicates included implications of all the value evidence. Digital psychological intervention should be implemented in low medical income countries where they can help to extend the reach of mental health care, especially for patients with depression and substance misuse. Policymakers and clinicians in consider more interventions for the treatment of mental health problems other than depression, substance misuse, and seek to standardize implementation programs to improve their reproducibility. overall five W4 reports were identified through a database with 5 report system identified through other resources. 188 reports were deemed to be duplicate, and 347 guideline abstracts. Of the remaining 88 full text reports, 4 eligibility, 24 studies met the inclusion criteria and included the systematic view. On study did not come include the information on mental health and outcomes. Therefore, the data from this study was not included in meta-analysis. 2 studies included the same cohort individuals. Therefore, the study with the largest sample size, Sanchez and Sandu, was included with the meta-analysis. Our 22 study included the meta-analysis with 31 comparison, 28 between religious psychological intervention group and control groups, 3 between psychological intervention groups. तो हमें डेटा एनालिसिस की वजह से है कि adolescents और boys and girls में डिजिटल मीडिया, फेसबुक और जूम मीटिंग्स हमें कॉलेज और यूनिवर्सिटी में यूज करनी पड़ रही बिकॉज ऑफ लॉकडाउन एंड कोविड सिचुएशंस. तो ये है.
Thank you so much, Bilal. This is wonderful work. I'm glad to see you involved in research. I don't think we'll have time for Q&A. We're running out of time, but I would love to have comments and any suggestions for Bilal while we have discussion. So, a couple of things I want to say on your study before I invite the panelists. I think it's a great systematic review because telehealth, including telehealth in psychiatry, will be the future of healthcare. It will become very widely adopted. It also fills a very important gap because of lack of psychological experts or psychology or psychiatry experts in small towns and small cities.
सर हमने यहाँ पर टेलीमेडिसिन की वर्कशॉप भी यूनिवर्सिटी ऑफ हेल्थ साइंसेज में, इंडियन मेडिकल यूनिवर्सिटी में और यूनिवर्सिटी लाहौर में टेलीमेडिसिन कंसल्टेशन से स्टार्ट हुई है और जिससे अभी पैराडाइम शिफ्ट आ गई है. लोग व्हाट्सएप और डिजिटल मीडिया और मरहम का पोर्टल भी आ गया, ऑलडॉक का पोर्टल भी आ गया. तो ये एक कंसल्टेशन का भी तरीका शिफ्ट हो रहा है, मेथड शिफ्ट हो रहा है.
Wonderful. So, Dr. Siddiqui, any comments or suggestions from you?
Congratulations, Bilal. आवाज जरा थोड़ी मेरे लिए मुश्किल थी understand करना, तो I could not follow the whole thing. But in terms of telehealth, I think the next frontier is going to be when the telehealth evaluations are compared with in-person evaluations, and then if they are found to be non-inferior, then there's going to be a validated role of telehealth in all sorts of evaluations.
Very good. Any comments from Dr. Prasid Zaman?
Thank you, sir. Very nice work, actually, indeed. And I just wonder that is there any क्या पाकिस्तान का ऐसा सेंट्रल सिस्टम है जिसमें ये टेली हेल्थ जिसको वो कंट्रोल किया जा सके, ताकि ये ना हो कि हर एक जो है वो अपनी मर्जी के साथ जो है वो शुरू कर दीजिए सर्विसेज, just control, like from Ministry of Health or from some.
यहाँ पर टेलीमेडिसिन के पोर्टल्स बने, ऑनलाइन पोर्टल है जो कि कंसल्टेंट और प्रैक्टिशनर को प्रोवाइड करता है. ऑलडॉक का पोर्टल है, फिर इसके बाद सोशल सिक्योरिटी होता है, यूनिवर्सिटी ऑफ हेल्थ.
Very good. And Dr. Rao, any comments or questions from you? Okay. Well, with that, we're right on the hour. So let's conclude on time and continue our conversations and discussions next week. It was a pleasure to see wonderful research work being done in Pakistan, and we should encourage it and create a culture of appreciation for research because it is hard work. So thank you everyone for joining, and Allah Hafiz and Assalamu alaikum.